So I just made a near hour-long video going really in-depth into Assassin's Creed Origins base game. I talked at length about how that game saved the Assassin's Creed franchise, or at least at the time it did, but I purposely wanted to save talking about its DLCs for separate videos, similar to how I did for Syndicate's Jack the Ripper DLC, because they are well deserving of them. And I noticed in the comments of that Origins video, a lot of you were praising these DLCs as well. So we're going to start by talking about the first DLC for Assassin's Creed Origins that was released in January of 2018, about 3 months after the release of the game, called The Hidden Ones. The Hidden Ones is a DLC that takes place 4 years after the ending events of Origins' main story, as we follow Bayek, who is now mentor of the rising up-and-coming Hidden Ones, which of course would eventually become the Assassin's Creed centuries later. Now, since this is after Origins ending, it is recommended you finish the main story and at least reach level 40, which is the base game's max level. And this DLC brings you to a fresh new world in Sinai, along with introducing several new characters and some familiar returning faces, along with new weapons, outfits, and activities to engage in. It's not a particularly long DLC, but for the quality of content it offers, it is more than worth the reasonable $10 price tag in my opinion. As is evident by the title, I absolutely love this DLC, and it feels like the natural evolution and progression from where Origins ended. And it just made me long for that Bayek and Aya sequel that we never got, even more so. But let's start by talking about the fresh new world it introduces. The DLC begins by Bayek receiving a letter requesting aid from Tahira, who was his apprentice in the main story, and basically the person who started the ring finger sacrifice as a way to demonstrate her loyalty and dedication to Bayek and the Creed. So Bayek heads to the war-torn and oppressed land of Sinai, where the Hidden Ones are aiding the local rebellion in their struggle against the invading Romans. Sinai is relatively small in comparison to Origins' massive open world from the base game, but this change in scenery was more than welcome and refreshing to me after spending 80+ hours in the base game's world. While Sinai still has that sandy, desert-like environment similar to many areas from the main game, it has this sort of red tinge to it that helps it feel distinct from the common yellow and orange color palette of the base game. There's also several mountain ranges and cliff faces to make the terrain feel a bit more dense. As you traverse, you'll stumble upon many dynamic events, typically with fights breaking out between Roman soldiers and the Sinai rebels. To go with this, similar to the base game, this DLC has a handful of some engaging side quests as well. Some are quick missions of helping out a citizen in need, while others are long-running, multifaceted quest lines with intriguing stories and multiple cutscenes. Like the Shadows of the Scarab, for example, which starts out similar to the epilogue-like you could hunt in the base game, but continues to throw countless twists and mysteries into the story that ties back into events that happened in the main game. This was by far my favorite side quest of the DLC, and it captures perfectly what makes Origins side content so special compared to the rest of the series. This DLC did exactly what any good DLC should do, taking the best and most beloved parts of the base game, bringing those elements back and expanding on them even further. Something else I really love about Origins, and something I forgot to mention in my big review of the game, is the environmental storytelling, and this DLC carries that on as well. There are so many different locations and areas you can discover that tell a story without any cutscenes or quest behind it, whether it's through reading notes, or in one specific example when I was looking for treasure and discovered a bunch of people who had been tied to the bottom of this lake with stones, showing what the Romans have been doing to the people of Sinai without even having to tell me directly. Stuff like this is really cool, and I really appreciate when open world games put in that extra attention to detail. It's a quality many of the best open world games on the market share. It also helps when Origins continues to be one of, if not the best looking Assassin's Creed game visually, and there's no shortage of beautiful sights in Sinai either. Now, gameplay wise, there's not really any new mechanics or big changes made in this DLC. It's more of just keeping what was fun and what worked in the base game and giving you more of that, with some new unique weapons, an increased level cap, and some more gear upgrades. Something a little more new and significant significant might have been nice, like for example in the Jack the Ripper DLC for Syndicate, it added a fear system, but Origin's core gameplay still holds up and is as fun as ever, so it wasn't really an issue for me. To be fair, I did also take a bit of a break between playing Origin's main game and this DLC, so I wasn't burnt out of the gameplay loop when coming back to play this. This game also adds some really sweet new customization options. Bayek's default outfit for this DLC, called the Hidden One, has to be one of my favorite default outfits in the entire series. It looks so badass, it fits Bayek perfectly, and has the elements and look of a classic assassin robe with the off-white and red color scheme, along with that Levantine assassin look. Yet it's not quite as evolved and sophisticated looking as something like Altair's outfit, as to represent that the Hidden Ones have still only just begun. It looks great and it fits Bayek perfectly. Seeing him like this really made him feel more like an assassin than a Medjay in this DLC. There were some other cool outfits too, but I couldn't bring myself to take off the Hidden One outfit. It's just too nice. I also really liked the new mounts. The selection for different mounts was kind of underwhelming for me in the base game. I feel like the legendary mounts looked a little too simple and basic, but in this DLC, it gives a lot of them armor and more unique designs. It looks a lot better in my opinion. It actually gave me incentive to buy and customize my mounts. I also love this DLC's main mission structure. It totally feels like classic Assassin's Creed with all the targets and assassinations, which is obviously perfectly befitting in a Hidden Ones focused DLC. And with all these massive forts and camps to infiltrate, stealth feels far more encouraged and important. That, along with a narrative element where Bayek now truly feels like he's evolved from Medjay to Assassin. Spoiler warning here in case you haven't played the DLC, which you definitely should if you haven't yet in my opinion, but as I mentioned at the beginning, this DLC starts with Bayek arriving in Sinai 4 years after Origin's ending, where Bayek and Aya chose to go their separate ways and build up the Hidden Ones. Bayek has let go of his rage and is no longer burdened by the death of his son, which is a very nice development to see in the character. You can tell there's a certain weight that's been lifted off of his shoulders, and while he's of course dedicated himself to the Brotherhood, he still has that lovable charm and personality from the base game, as is evident from the opening cutscene.
Let me tell you of him, the legend of Siwa, the shadow who is Bayek. Bayek, Bayek, Bayek.
Sounds like quite a man.
Again, just seeing him as a mentor and Hidden One is so rewarding after his journey in Origins. And I'm so glad we at least get to see a glimpse of it, because Ubisoft completely dropped the ball in not giving this man a sequel. This DLC is about the closest we'll ever get. But again, what I really love about this DLC's story is it feels like an Assassin's Creed story. Getting to meet up with fellow Hidden Ones in a bureau, hunting down Order of Ancient targets, recruiting people into the Brotherhood as a mentor. That gave me some Assassin's Creed Brotherhood vibes and I loved it. And the best part is, it doesn't feel forced at all. It feels earned. We saw Bayek's entire journey to get here, and now that he's an actual assassin, it feels like the natural progression for his story. Again, similar to the jump for Ezio from Assassin's Creed 2 to Brotherhood. The plot of the story follows a somewhat similar structure to the main game, just on a smaller scale, assassinating a bunch of big targets until you get to the leader, and there's even a surprise twist for the final boss, similar to what the base game did with Flavius. The twist here was pretty predictable to me. The moment I saw Gamilat, I figured he would probably betray us at some point, and the morally questionable rebellion leader is a pretty common trope in storytelling, but still, I liked the idea of his character, and I also appreciate that they didn't make him unnecessarily evil. He just did what he genuinely thought would benefit his people in the long run, even if it meant sacrificing the few for the many. But most importantly, we also get to see the return of Aya, who is now fully Amunet and looks great. Bayek and Aya really got some insane glow-ups for this DLC, but I really like the detail they put into her design, as it looks rather similar to her statue in Assassin's Creed 2. Unfortunately, Amunet does come into the story pretty late. I kind of wish she was more involved, but like Origin's base game, she's great in what little she does have. Once again, the performances are top tier, and there's this real sense of longing and tragedy between Bayek and Amunet, having to put their personal wants and feelings aside for the good of the Brotherhood and the world. It's another sad but beautiful ending for the characters, and it's good to know that they at least reconnected at some point, considering their bodies were buried together. Again, it just frustrates me that we didn't get to see more of these two and Amunet's Brotherhood in Rome, but oh well. The story is short but impactful, and it just feels like the natural evolution of these characters and this story. And aside from a few minor nitpicks, there's little I would change. I think this DLC is an absolute must play for those who have finished and enjoyed Origins. It almost feels like a well-needed epilogue to Origins, and it brings some closure to both Bayek and Amunet, even if there was still so much potential that was never explored with those two. And all of this for $10 is a pretty good deal in my opinion. I genuinely believe this is one of the best DLCs in all of Assassin's Creed, although there are still some that I have yet to play. I hope to make a video on the Curse of the Pharaohs DLC as well, but I'm not sure when exactly, as we of course have AC Mirage coming out real soon here, but I'll get to it when I can. In the meantime though, let me know what you think about the Hidden Ones DLC for Assassin's Creed Origins, and where it ranks for you among other DLC in Assassin's Creed. As always, if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you left a like, and considered subscribing to the channel if you're new. I also highly recommend you check out my review on Origin's base game if you haven't yet. I'll leave a link for it down in the description, and other than that, thanks for watching, and have a great rest of your day, Hidden Ones.